Today I'm going to be talking about feathers, and how they are laid out over the anatomy of birds, and how that information can be applied to illustrating winged or feathered creatures. Everything that has feathers is a bird, and all birds have feathers. They are part of the skin system and are made of keratin, the same substance that's found in our hair, scales, and the beaks of birds. Feathers have three main functions: flight, thermoregulation, and appearance. A feather is made of three parts: the calamus or quill, the rachis, and the vane. The vane, however, is made up of hundreds of barbs, barbules, and tiny hooklets called hamuli. These hooklets act like Velcro and, when engaged, strengthen the feather for flight. There are 6 types of feathers: flight, contour, semiplume, filiplume, bristle, and down. For our purposes, we will be focusing on flight and contour feathers, as they are the feather types that give birds their shape and appearance. Flight feathers are asymmetrical, meaning the vane of the feather will be narrower on the leading edge of the wing or tail, and as the feather moves back towards the body, the veins on either side of the rachis will become more symmetrical. Contour feathers, however, are symmetrical. This means that the veins are equal on both sides of the rachis, no matter where they are found in the bird. And here's an example of why these two types of feathers are so important. As you can see, these feather types give the bird its shape and appearance, with the contour feathers covering all the body, the flight feathers covering the wings and tail. Note that the wing feathers are identified as regimes, or oars, and the tail feathers are called rectrices, or rudders. Regardless of what they are called, all flight feathers and contour feathers grow out of tracts called teralae. These tracts are like the blueprint of feather coverage, showing both the origin and the direction of feather growth. Feathers tend to grow out of these tracts in accelerating sizes, meaning they grow from small to large, and when growth of one tract overlaps another, you get an uneven effect of various sized feathers, where the larger feathers of one tract overlap the smaller feathers of the next. It's important to remember this because it will help you resist the urge to lay out your feathers in symmetrical rows and sizes like scales. If this does happen, your feathered creatures will tend to look more like reptiles or fish. Keep in mind that the best way to handle feathers is by grouping them, and that feather groupings are defined by the area covered by growth from the teralae tract. For example, the feather group on top of the head is identified as the crest, while the group covering the cheek is identified as the auricular. These predefined groupings work to our favor as illustrators because, as we all know, the easiest way to deal with a complicated subject matter is to simplify. As you can see, the image to the right of the photo does just that, while the image on the far right adds the directional flow of the feathers in their respective groups. This is important because we can now see that the feathers not only have their own groups, but they also have their own local directional flow inside of these groups, as opposed to feathers just covering the form as a single blanket with no variation in size or direction. Though all flight and contour feathers grow out of tracts on the skin, only flight feathers grow out of the bone. These include the primaries, secondaries, alula, and middle two tail feathers. In this illustration, you can see where the primaries and secondaries originate from: the bone, and that the wing has the same basic bone structure as our arms. This slide is important because most feathered creatures have wings, and wings are not just feathers. They actually have an anatomical structure. On the skeletal level, there is a humerus, ulna, radius, and several hand bones. The secondary feathers grow out of the ulna, and the primary feathers grow out of the hand bones. Note that the elbow is hidden inside the wing, and that the first directional change in the wing is at the wrist, not the elbow. Also note that when the wing is fully outstretched, the elbow is still bent. In addition, the skin that attaches the shoulder to the wrist is called the propatagium, and is the foundation for the leading edge of the wing. Now, we are going to look at some images that lack the structure and directional flow I've been discussing. The image on the left is missing the propatagium, and the skeletal structure makes up the leading edge of the wing. This is a common mistake, as you'll see. Also, all feathers curve in towards the body, even the outermost primary, and as you can see, this artist has feathers incorrectly curving outwards away from the body. Next, the image on the right lacks bone structure, not to mention that the wings are covered in one type of feather, contour feathers. If that was the case, this guy's not flying anywhere. Here we have a painting from Bouguereau and Leathernicki, and both have the same problems. They both have anatomical issues, and they're both missing the propatagium, and neither has clearly defined feather growth areas. So as an illustrator, keep in mind these pitfalls, as the information covered in this presentation will help you to overcome them, making your feathered creatures more believable. And with that comes the conclusion of my presentation on feathers. I hope you enjoyed it, and more importantly, I hope you found it useful. Thank you for watching.